The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating, like a wet wool blanket. Honestly, Sarah, women just don't have that killer instinct. They get emotional, they hesitate. They're not cut out for closing the big deals. He chuckled, a dismissive, knowing sound that scraped against my teeth. My gaze, fixed on the polished mahogany of his desk, felt like it was burning holes. The air conditioning hummed, oblivious to the seismic shift that had just occurred within me. It was the Tuesday after my promotion, a promotion he had fought tooth and nail against, a promotion I had earned through sheer grit and countless late nights. He was my direct superior, the man who held my career, and by extension, my family's financial security, in his surprisingly soft hands. For years, I'd navigated the choppy waters of his condescension, his casual sexism a constant undertow. My own life, outside these sterile office walls, was a delicate balancing act, managing the household budget after my husband's unexpected job loss, ensuring our daughter had everything she needed for her specialized therapy, and keeping a brave face for my parents who relied on my income more than they'd ever admit. This promotion wasn't just a career step, it was a lifeline. And he, with that smug, self-satisfied smirk, had just tried to sever it. There were so many moments, small chips and gouges that I'd filed away, each one a tiny contribution to the Everest of resentment I now felt. I remembered the time I'd presented a groundbreaking proposal for a new client, one that involved a significant, multi-year contract. I'd meticulously prepared, rehearsed, and anticipated every possible objection. As I finished, beaming with pride, he'd leaned back, finger steepled. Impressive, Sarah, really. But you're missing the ruthlessness. The aggressive edge. Maybe you should let Mark handle the final pitch. He knows how to make people feel uncomfortable enough to sign. Mark, a junior colleague with half my experience and a penchant for schmoozing over substance, had secured the deal. I got a lukewarm pat on the back for my excellent groundwork. Another time, during a company-wide performance review, I'd outlined my contributions to a complex merger. He'd interrupted me halfway through, turning to the CEO with a sigh. She's a valuable asset, of course. Great with details. But when it comes to the high-stakes negotiations, the ones that make or break us, that requires a different temperament. A more masculine approach, shall we say. The CEO, a man whose own daughter was a rising star in a different industry, had merely nodded, a silent complicity that made my stomach churn. These weren't isolated incidents, they were the persistent, everyday rain of subtle disbelief, a constant reinforcement that my contributions, no matter how significant, were somehow less valid, less impactful, simply because I wore a skirt. Each dismissal, each belittling remark, was a carefully placed brick in a wall around my ambition, a wall I had, until this very moment, accepted as an immutable part of the landscape. My husband, bless his heart, would always tell me, just focus on your work, honey. Let your results speak for themselves. But the results, it seemed, weren't enough when they were delivered by me. The meeting had been called on short notice. The client, Apex Innovations, was poised to sign a deal that would fundamentally reshape our company's market position. This wasn't just a contract, it was a legacy. I had cultivated this relationship for 18 months, painstakingly building trust, understanding their intricate needs, and tailoring our offerings to perfection. We were in the final stages, a handshake away from securing over $120 million in annual revenue. I had the contract, meticulously reviewed and ready for signatures, tucked into my briefcase. My boss, Mr. Abernathy, was supposed to be there to provide the senior executive's blessing, a formality I had assured Apex was a mere formality. But as we entered the plush boardroom, the air thick with the scent of expensive coffee and unspoken anxieties, I saw him already seated, a triumphant glint in his eye. He was alone at the head of the table, the Apex executives flanking him. My heart sank. I had specifically requested that he only attend the signing itself, not the final preamble. As I approached, he gestured to the empty seat beside him, his smile wide and insincere. "Sarah, my dear, so glad you could make it. We were just discussing the final terms." The Apex CEO, Mr. Sterling, a man I had spent countless hours getting to know, offered a polite, albeit slightly confused, nod. Abernathy cleared his throat, his voice dripping with an unwarranted self-importance. Mr. Sterling and I have been having a most productive conversation. We've agreed to a few adjustments. Small things, really, that will streamline the process. You see, Sarah, he turned to me, his gaze piercing, sometimes the finer points can be lost on, well, on those who aren't intimately familiar with the aggressive nature of these high-stakes negotiations. I've taken the liberty of making the necessary assurances. He slid a revised contract across the table towards Sterling, not even glancing in my direction. The silence that followed was deafening. I saw it then, in Abernathy's posture, in the almost imperceptible tightening of his jaw when he looked at me, the calculated move. He wasn't just undermining me, he was stealing my victory, claiming it for himself, and using my perceived weakness as his justification. My breath hitched. I felt a cold dread creep into my stomach, quickly followed by a surge of something far more potent, a chilling, absolute clarity. My fingers, usually clammy with nerves before a big presentation, were steady as I reached into my briefcase. I didn't speak. I didn't raise my voice. I simply withdrew a slim, leather-bound folder. It contained printouts of every email I had sent to Apex Innovations over the past 18 months, meticulously organized by date. Beside them, I placed printouts of their replies, each one a testament to the groundwork I had laid. Then, I produced a detailed report, complete with market analysis and projected ROI, all generated by me. I placed this squarely in the center of the table, directly in front of Mr. Sterling. I looked at Abernathy, and for the first time I saw a flicker of confusion cross his face. He had expected tears, perhaps, or a stammered plea. He got order. Precision. Mr. Sterling, my voice was calm, measured. I believe there may be some misunderstanding. This contract, as it stands, I gestured to the document Abernathy had just presented, is not the agreement we have painstakingly negotiated. The terms agreed upon are detailed in this proposal I prepared. I slid my own, pristine copy of the original contract towards Sterling. I have also documented the entirety of our correspondence and my analysis, which led to this agreement. Mr. Abernathy was aware of my role in securing this opportunity, as he has been for all previous stages. I met his gaze directly. The smugness had vanished, replaced by a dawning unease. He opened his mouth to speak, but Sterling, his eyes now darting between the documents and Abernathy's increasingly pale face, held up a hand. Mr. Abernathy, Sterling said, his voice quiet but firm, I believe Ms. Hayes has been handling our negotiations. And frankly, the proposals presented are significantly different. I'd like to understand why. Abernathy's attempt at a smooth recovery faltered. He stammered, well, you see, the market conditions have shifted, and Sarah, she might not have the full picture. But Sterling was already examining my original contract, his brow furrowed. He looked at me, a new respect dawning in his eyes. Ms. Hayes, your foresight is remarkable. These adjustments Mr. Abernathy proposed are substantial. And frankly, not in our best interest. He then turned his attention to Abernathy, his tone hardening. I believe we have wasted enough of everyone's time. We will proceed with the original terms, as negotiated by Ms. Hayes. If Mr. Abernathy wishes to discuss his unauthorized alterations, he can do so with our legal team. Abernathy's face, usually so florid, drained of color. The confident swagger evaporated, leaving him looking small and utterly exposed. The silence that followed was not one of confusion, but of his complete and utter deflation. The frantic text messages started almost immediately. Who do you think you are? Abernathy's first message, sent before he even left the Apex building, was a furious stream of expletives. Then came the flying monkeys. My mother called, tearfully asking if I was causing trouble at work. My aunt, bless her busybody soul, had somehow heard Abernathy's side and was lamenting my disrespectful behavior. Abernathy, meanwhile, was scrambling. He tried to rally support, whispering accusations of insubordination and arrogance to anyone who would listen. But the Apex deal, the $120 million lifesaver, had been signed, precisely as I had negotiated it, with my name prominently displayed as the lead. Sterling had sent a curt email to the CEO, detailing Abernathy's attempted sabotage and praising my professionalism. The fallout for Abernathy was swift and brutal. The CEO, a man who valued tangible results above all else, saw Abernathy not just as a failed manager, but as a liability. The whispers turned into an investigation. His own colleagues, sensing the shift in power, began to distance themselves. Within weeks, a discreet severance package was offered, accompanied by a non-disclosure agreement that was, ironically, more about protecting the company from Abernathy's further indiscretions than vice versa. He disappeared from the corporate landscape as quietly as he had tried to push me out of it. I never spoke to him again. The office hummed along, oblivious to the quiet storm had passed. My daughter's therapy sessions continued, the bills were paid, and my parents breathed a little easier. The satisfaction wasn't in his ruin, not really. It was in the quiet, undeniable proof. The cold, hard fact that the killer instinct he so readily attributed to men, the ruthlessness he deemed exclusive to his gender, was simply a matter of skill, intelligence, and unwavering focus. And I, Sarah, had possessed it all along, waiting patiently in the quiet for the right moment to let it speak for itself. The silence that followed his absence was not empty, it was filled with the steady hum of competence, the quiet confidence of a woman who had closed her deal, and in doing so, had exposed him for the hollow echo he truly was.